Double rainbow all the way across the sky. Oh, hey, Book Ashley, what's up? Oh, I'm just pre-ordering The Hunger Games on Amazon. Better price, you know. Awesome, you finally realized that the movie is better than the book. Excuse me? The book is always better than the movie. New moon. New moon. Alright, they're almost always better. But with Hunger Games, they're practically the same story. They're so similar. But the movie expanded on it, which means it's better. So not true. Well, there is one way to solve this. You mean BandGeek8408 did set out to his subscribers to review it. Perfect. But if we're going to do this, I want to do this right. What are you doing? Cosplay! The Hunger Games is a... What are you wearing? It's the outfit I wore to the midnight premiere of the Hunger Games movie. Don't you remember? How could I forget? You sum up. I need a moment. Oh my gosh, I thought I was a nerd, but... Okay. The Hunger Games is one of those rare stories where it seems to touch people, no matter what. Age, gender, race, heck, even both the left and the right-wing parties here in the United States have used it to suit their own purposes. It's as if anybody can get something out of it. So naturally, they made a movie. The story takes place in a futuristic country called Panem, where each district, we might refer to them like a state, is required to give up a son and a daughter to fight to the death in the Hunger Games for the appeasement and the enjoyment of the ruling class, the people who live in the capital. But was first time the charm? Or did the movie take the cake? Let's find out. This is books versus movies, The Hunger Games. Katniss is one of those rare characters that only really comes around every once in a while. She's smart, a little sassy, and fights for what matters. Plus, given a little training, she might even be able to put Buffy in a bit of trouble. In both the book and the film, we see the world through Katniss's eyes. It's a hard place where she has to fight and struggle for survival, and she's also responsible for the lives of her sister and her mother. Which is more noticeable in the book. In the book we get Katniss's narration, and because of that we get to see all her thoughts and feelings. We truly understand the pain and the fear that she's going through, and seeing how intense those emotions are shows us how strong a character she really is. However, even though we don't have Katniss's narration, with the acting skills of Jennifer Lawrence, we don't really need it. Each look and emotional touch and action towards other characters is basically pulling off exactly who Katniss was in the book. The only real difference I can see between the two Katnisses is that book Katniss is a bit more standoffish and hardened, which makes sense because she has to fight every day, and that was even before the game started. But without narration, we end up tweaking the character of Katniss just a little bit. Her emotion becomes more aware. It's more on her sleeve because we're not inside her head anymore. And although that might bother some people, I actually think it turns Katniss into a stronger character because not only is she fighting for her life, but she's not afraid to have these feelings and emotions. So because of that, the movie gets the point. But what's a hero without its villain? Right now, let's look at antagonist. Unlike a lot of fiction directed towards this age group, The Hunger Games doesn't really have a big bad per se. The real villain and the real antagonist is actually just the world where these events take place. Panem is a horrible place, where the work of the many only sees results for very few. And in the book, we really connect with Katniss, and we understand and empathize with her. But since the majority of the people that read this book are from the industrialized world, we're supposed to also see the connections to the capital that our everyday lives have. And it's supposed to be, and is, chilling. Even though the film takes a slightly different approach here, they do a spectacular job. There are things that show it with the talk shows and the behind-the-scenes aspects, but the real thing that typifies it for me is the scene when Haymitch is trying to basically make it so Katniss can continue to survive by getting benefactors to help. In the corner, we see a little boy receive a gift. In this world, the Hunger Games aren't just an entertainment event or something to show the districts that they're less than the capital. It is a time for little kids to get presents. He gets a toy weapon and he runs around really happy and he's so excited that his parents got him this gift. And what it shows is that the evil of the capital is an evil they're not even aware of. This is normal. And that is the most dangerous kind of evil imaginable. Despite the fact that the real antagonist of the story is the world, we also need to see the natural progression of the world, as in the games, because Katniss would definitely view them as an antagonist. Now, the one issue I really have with the movie in this section is the fact that the people fighting in the games are caricatures. They're cartoonish almost in how mean they are. In the books, I think we got a better view of the other tributes as people, and not really just people, but as victims of the world they grew up in and the system it has created. It's just another victim of the games. Despite that, the movie does use this time to develop characters that make a greater impact over the trilogy as a whole. And not only do we have that, but we get an actual human antagonist. President Snow really isn't even in the first book at all, but his brief appearances in the film set him up as a really dark character and a real good example of the capital. So, because we have the evil of knowledge and understanding what they're doing to mess with people's lives, and the evil of ignorance together in the movie gets the point for antagonist. See, I told you the movie was better than the book. You may be winning, but we're only 2 categories in, and this next subject, I think you'll have a little trouble with. Okay, so as I said earlier with the tributes, some of the other characters get shortchanged or just forgotten in the movie. And the best example of this I can give are Katniss' sister and her mother. In the book, we get to know them just a little bit more and get their backstory better. And because of that, it has more weight. Although, to be fair, the performances are amazing, and anyone who has read the book knows exactly what's going on, from the vacant stares or the gentle examples of who Prim is. But movies shouldn't have to require pre-reading, despite the fact that I wish everybody would do it. Characters need to stand up on their own, and the little characters and the other characters in the book really fill the world and make you understand it better. My favorite example of this is Madge. In the book, she has a role. She doesn't even exist in the film. In the book, we see her as a more wealthy member of the district. She's the mayor's daughter. But even she is under the thumb of the capital and is in danger of the Hunger Games. And she ends up being the person that gives the Mockingjay to Katniss. Although with any adaptation, we knew there would be trimming, and unfortunately that means losing some of the minor characters. So the real thing we need to look at are who I think are the main 4 other characters. That's Gale, Rue, Peeta, and Haymitch. Now when it comes to Gale, I'm really amazed with the job that was done. They didn't add more to enhance the love triangle, and every second he was there, it was like Gale had stepped out of the page and onto the screen, and I was so impressed. My only problem with Rue, really, is that I felt like we didn't have enough time to get to know her in the film. Although the acting was great again, and to be honest, I cried watching the movie when Rue died, and I didn't do that when I read the book. Peeta and Haymitch alter a bit from the books. Haymitch in the novel is someone that has been completely destroyed. He fought in the Hunger Games, and although he didn't die, he is a huge victim because he's gotten himself into a state of addiction from alcohol. Although Woody Harrelson did an amazing job, I don't buy that he was destroyed by the system. Peeta in the movie is lacking something from the book. A history. In the book we see that Peeta has been caring for Katniss basically since they were small children, and he's had this interest and this care over her even from afar. In the book it was transplanted to the age they are at the moment, which I think kind of hurt the character analysis. Also, I know it's not the biggest deal with the movie, but with all the money they were putting into this, couldn't they have made Peeta actually look like a blonde? So book gets the point and we're on the board! But what about the way we see the story? Time for some imagery. Suzanne Collins' world brings you into a very dualistic society. We see this through the starvation of the people in District 12 and the strange behavior of the people of the Capitol with their weird plastic surgery and pretty unique inventions. Visually, there's certainly a difference between the classes, although there's one thing that the book did better in this way. When I read the book, I pictured the people in District 12, well, some of them at least, near starvation, and our actors look like normal middle-class teenagers, kids, or adults. And that's of no fault to them. They're not going to starve for the role, but that's just something the book can provide. However, I do want to point out that when I watched the movie, District 12 looked exactly as I pictured it in my head. When it comes to the games itself, the book brings you to a pretty violent and disturbing world. You see the blood, you feel the sweat and the grime and the dirt. You're in the games. The film, on the other hand, falls into the trap of the PG-13 rating. Now, I am different than a lot of other people about this. I actually don't mind that all the violence isn't necessarily in your face and there isn't blood gushing everywhere. I think in film, sometimes less is more. Just the idea in my mind that teenagers are murdering each other is very disturbing. And I could probably picture something a lot worse than what I'm seeing on the screen. Another issue I have is with the end of the games. Now, the novel had all these inventions, but the filmmakers decided to make it a little more realistic for a viewing audience and took these things away. That included the mutts, at least in their form that they are in the books. In the books, we see the final battle of the games come up with a psychologically scarring issue. These animals come up and they contain parts of the other tributes. So Katniss has to look in the eyes of someone that she killed. And she also has to see the sweetness of Rue turned into a giant monster that's bloodthirsty. Unfortunately, the film decided to alter this. They turned the mutts into a CG effect, and unfortunately, that's exactly what they look like. A cheap, ugly-looking computer effect. They took something that was intense and meaningful in the book and really made it disappointing. So, book gets the point. As I pointed down earlier, the book and the movie basically have a similar plot and structure, so what it really comes down to is, what do you want more of? So really, it all comes down to preference, and personally, I prefer the little narratives in the novel more. It has a lot to do with the fact that if I feel all these other people being oppressed, and destroyed, I'm more able to invest into Katniss's story. But that's just how I go through stories. Although the film does this with whom I can only assume is Rue's father, it's just not enough. The book gives me so much more of a connection with the school, the Hob, the mines, and all the other characters in District 12. And because of that, book gets the point and the win! Hey, Bandgeek 8408 is doing movie redexes. A good excuse to do another one of these? I'd love to, but we're a bit busy right now. What do you mean? Well, there's Daisy. Yeah, I kind of want to find out the end of my story. Oh yeah, long time no see! And Nymphadora. Don't call me Nymphadora! Sorry, Tonks! Tonks' diary has a lot of stuff coming out soon. Plus the religious, geeky, and just random vlogs that I like to do. Yes, Bible Girl, we haven't forgotten about you. Okay, another time. And the movie will totally win then. Bring it on.